Today I will attempt to explain the entire new California Republic in chronological order, creating a timeline of events that will make it easier for you to understand the entire story. There will be a timeline animation at the bottom of the screen, which should make it easier to follow along and understand exactly when certain events are taking place. And there's no better place to start than where it all began. The NCR started from nothing. Vault 15 opened in 2097, releasing settlers who used a Garden of Eden creation kit to transform desert into farmland at Shady Sands. They built irrigation systems, established trade routes, and created the foundations of organized society in a radioactive hellscape. By 2189, President Aradesh had done something nobody thought possible. He unified 5 separate settlements into the new California Republic, each bringing essential resources to the table. Shady Sands brought agricultural surplus from their Garden of Eden creation kit, enhanced farmland. The hub controlled water distribution through merchant cartels that had monopolized the most precious resource. Maxon provided military traditions from its population of former soldiers and their descendants. Los Angeles added industrial capacity from its scattered settlements and workshops. Dayglo's ghoul scientists offered technical knowledge preserved from before the war. Together, they wrote a constitution that basically copied America's homework but added "no slavery" in bold letters. A direct response to the Legion's practices, the document established a Senate, presidency, and judicial system that looked functional on paper. Aradesh ruled for 7 years before dying from an attack by a desert raider. His daughter Tandi took over in 2196 and refused to leave office for 52 years, transforming the NCR from a desert town of 3,000 people to a nation of 700,000 citizens by 2241. She built schools that actually taught literacy, hospitals that provided real medical care, and courts that occasionally delivered justice. It was a real thriving nation. But here's what nobody mentions. This growth came through absorbing territories that never asked to be absorbed. Every success carried the seeds of future failure. Democracy. Presidents supposedly serve 5-year terms through democratic elections. Tandy somehow served 10 consecutive terms because nobody dared challenge the founder's daughter who built their nation. After her came Joanna Tibbet from 2248 to 2253, impeached for scandals involving Brahmin barons bribing senators for land rights. Wendell Peterson took over until 2273, starting the Mojave occupation after seeing Hoover Dam. Aaron Kimball, the current president in 2281, won by promising security through endless expansion. A war hero who went from general to president by appealing to fear. Congress operates in 2 houses that pass laws benefiting whoever pays most. The Senate represents states with 2 senators each, though frontier territories get no representation while paying full taxes. The House of Representatives allocates seats by population, which mysteriously favors regions where Brahmin barons control the census. The Supreme Court exists theoretically, making rulings that favor property rights over human rights. Justices get appointed for life, assuming they don't die from radiation poisoning first. They've ruled that ghouls are citizens, but somehow also ruled that businesses can ban them. They've declared super mutants have rights while allowing shoot-on-sight policies. States maintain their own governments with varying competence. Shady Sands operates as the federal capital with bureaucracy rivaling pre-war Washington. The hub runs through merchant guilds that are technically private but practically governmental. Redding gets controlled by mining consortiums who own the mayor. Frontier territories get military governors who rule through martial law, suspending rights for security. Voting requires land ownership or military service, keeping most wastelanders disenfranchised while ranch owners vote multiple times through shell companies. Elections happen regularly with results that surprisingly favor incumbents. Ballot boxes get stuffed, votes get lost, and polling places mysteriously close in poor districts. Campaign financing comes from the same dozen families who've controlled wealth since Tandy's era, but democracy was just the surface. The real power lay somewhere else entirely: economy. The NCR dollar was backed by gold reserves that made them the wasteland's economic powerhouse until the Brotherhood decided to teach them about fiat currency the hard way. One single night in 2273 destroyed the NCR's economy forever. The attackers used a weapon no one expected, and the aftermath reveals why the NCR was doomed from the start. Overnight, the NCR switched to fiat currency backed by nothing except government promises. The dollar immediately crashed from parity with caps to 2.5 to 1 and continues falling. The government prints money to fund wars, causing inflation that makes pre-war Germany look stable. Soldiers get paid in increasingly worthless paper while merchants demand caps or barter. Trade forms the backbone of what actually functions. The Crimson Caravan Company runs routes from Shady Sands to New Vegas, charging monopoly prices because they're the only ones with enough guards to survive. They've absorbed or destroyed every competitor through predatory pricing backed by government contracts. The gun runners manufacture weapons, technically independent but so tied to NCR military contracts they're essentially nationalized. Brahmin barons control beef prices through artificial scarcity, keeping herds small while claiming land for future expansion. They've created a cartel that fixes prices, divides territory, and eliminates competition through hired raiders who coincidentally attack independent ranchers. Water merchants from the hub still dominate water rights, charging settlements for access to wells and springs that nobody owned before NCR annexation. They've monetized survival itself. The NCR taxes everything that moves, and most things that don't. Income tax starts at 10% and climbs to 50% for high earners, though the wealthy use loopholes that don't technically exist. Property tax increases yearly, forcing small farmers to sell to large operations. Trade tariffs make imports expensive, while protecting NCR businesses that produce inferior goods. Road tolls charge for infrastructure that's falling apart. War taxes get implemented as temporary measures that become permanent. Banking exists through the NCR Reserve, a federal system that loans money at interest rates that would make loan sharks blush. They offer business loans to expand operations, then seize assets when artificial economic crashes make repayment impossible. The wealthy coordinate market manipulation, buying low during crashes they create and selling high during recoveries they engineer. Currency speculation enriches insiders who know when the government will print more money. The Mojave campaign alone costs more than the entire federal budget, funded through war bonds sold to patriotic citizens who don't understand economics. The government promises 5% returns on bonds while inflation runs at 15%. They sell the same future tax revenues multiple times to different buyers. The deficit grows exponentially, sustainable only through continuous expansion that brings new territories to tax. And this economic death spiral accelerates with each military victory that costs more than it captures. Military. The NCR Army models itself on pre-war America's military structure, inheriting all its problems without the industrial base that made it function. Their military training had one fatal flaw that would kill thousands. But it also hid a secret that explains everything. Recruits spent 6 weeks learning to march, salute, and shoot, straight enough to hit a barn door at 20 paces. They practice with ammunition so scarce that most soldiers fire their rifles for the first time in actual combat. Drill instructors, chosen for volume over competence, teach tactics from pre-war manuals that assume air support and artillery that doesn't exist. Recruits graduate knowing how to polish boots, but not how to survive the wasteland. Infantry forms the backbone, equipped with service rifles chambered in 5.56 mm when ammunition shipments arrive. Standard kit includes combat armor that's usually salvaged and refitted multiple times, 2 frag grenades that might be duds, a combat knife that doubles as a can opener, 3 stim packs that could be saline or actual medicine, and rations that expired before the bombs dropped. Soldiers carry 80-pound packs through desert heat in armor that doesn't breathe, wondering why half their squad has heat stroke. Heavy troopers get salvaged power armor, usually T-45 units recovered from Brotherhood casualties and held together with welding and prayer. Nobody knows how to properly maintain fusion cores, so they jury-rig battery packs that last hours instead of years. The servos fail regularly, turning power armor into metal coffins. The hydraulics leak, requiring constant refills with Brahmin blood that corrodes the systems. Still, heavy troopers represent the NCR's best shot at matching Brotherhood knights. The Rangers operate as special forces with mythology exceeding reality. They trace back to anti-slavery organizations from before NCR annexation, maintaining traditions of independence that frustrate regular military command. Training takes years at hidden facilities, with survival courses that kill half the candidates before they reach marksmanship trials. Those who survive carry Ranger Sequoias, custom 45-70 revolvers that cost more than most soldiers make in their lifetimes. Their anti-materiel rifles can punch through power armor at 500 yards, assuming they have the match-grade ammunition that costs 10 caps per shot. First Recon serves as elite snipers, identified by red berets and 1,000-yard stares that see through people. They operate in spotter-shooter pairs, taking out high-value targets before regular forces know combat has started. Craig Boone, their most infamous member, allegedly has more confirmed kills than any sniper in NCR history, though half might have been civilians depending on who you ask. They get first pick of equipment, including scoped hunting rifles modified for accuracy and suppressors that actually suppress. Logistics operates through massive bases like Camp McCarran in the Mojave, a pre-war airport converted into the largest military installation outside California. Supply supply lines stretch thousands of miles through hostile territory, with caravans losing 30% of shipments to raiders, wildlife, and administrative losses that definitely aren't theft. Quartermasters run black market operations, selling military supplies to fund operations the Senate won't approve. Motor pools maintain vehicles that barely run, including trucks that break down every 50 miles, and vertibirds that fly only when technicians perform the right rituals. The medical corps theoretically provides healthcare but practically offers prayers. Field hospitals run out of supplies weekly, relying on followers of the apocalypse volunteers who actually understand medicine. Military doctors range from competent surgeons who learned through trial and error to conscripts who read a first aid manual once. Stim packs get prioritized for officers, while enlisted make do with healing powder that might be ground bark or might be placebo. Here's the classified truth. Desertion rates hit 40% in frontier units, with entire squads disappearing into the wasteland rather than face another suicide mission. Every victory was actually defeat in disguise. And this is why. Expansion. The NCR claims everything from Baja to Montana through manifest destiny with extra radiation, absorbing territories like a cancer that mistakes growth for health. The original 5 states formed voluntarily, each seeing benefit in unity. But northern expansion turned predatory fast. Redding's gold mines got absorbed through economic manipulation. NCR banks loaned money to miners, then called in debts during orchestrated crashes, seizing claims for pennies on the dollar. Most profits now flow to new Reno crime families who maintain independence through bribes that exceed tax revenues. Vault City got annexed despite its xenophobic policies and slavery with extra steps labor system because the NCR needed their medical technology and didn't care about their methods. Sacktown joined voluntarily for protection against raiders, immediately regretting it when taxes tripled and protection meant one sheriff who drinks all day. Arroyo allied through tribal treaties after the Chosen One's adventures, maintaining theoretical autonomy that gets violated whenever convenient. The NCR recognizes their sovereignty on paper while building military bases on their sacred sites. Southern expansion into Baja became the first warning sign of imperial overreach. The campaign cost thousands of lives conquering desert that produces nothing except casualties and radiation storms. Rattletail, established as Dayglow's grand colonization project, failed spectacularly when radiation levels spiked and killed most colonists within months. The survivors fled north, abandoning infrastructure that cost millions to build. The Boneyard annexation only succeeded because locals preferred NCR corruption to constant raider attacks, choosing organized exploitation over chaotic violence. Eastern expansion created the Mojave disaster that defines current NCR decline. The campaign started in 2253 under President Peterson, who saw Hoover Dam's hydroelectric potential and New Vegas's wealth as prizes worth any cost. By 2281, they hold the dam and partial Vegas access through fragile treaties with Mr. House, but at the cost of thousands dead, an economy in freefall, and military resources stretched beyond breaking. Camp McCarran serves as headquarters for an occupation that bleeds money and lives daily. Outposts along the Long 15 get hit weekly by Legion raids, requiring constant reinforcement that arrives under strength and under-equipped. Settlements like Prim receive NCR protection that consists of one sheriff in a casino while the town burns. Sharecropper farms feed NCR citizens while locals starve, creating resentment that manifests as sabotage. The NCR controls territory only on maps and government offices. Actual control extends maybe a mile from major bases. Patrol routes leave massive gaps where raiders operate freely, taxing the same citizens the NCR claims to protect. Towns fly NCR flags because the alternative is Legion slavery, not because they support the Republic. Tax collectors need military escorts, and even then half never return, their bodies found stripped and crucified as warnings. Treaties with tribes mean nothing when expansion benefits Brahmin barons. The NCR signs agreements guaranteeing land rights, water access, and sovereignty. Then ranchers arrive claiming ancestral grazing rights to tribal territory. When tribes resist, incidents occur. Cattle poisoned, settlers killed by raiders who leave convenient evidence. The military responds to protect NCR citizens, accidentally expanding territory. The Great Khans know this pattern intimately. They've been driven from their lands 3 times by NCR expansion. Bitter Springs in 2278 was supposedly a military operation against raiders. First recon snipers and rangers turned the canyon into a killing field. They shot fleeing women and children, claiming they couldn't distinguish civilians from combatants. The survivors fled to Red Rock Canyon, where they're squeezed between NCR and Legion, choosing Caesar's slavery over NCR's genocide. Every expansion requires more troops to hold, more supplies to maintain, more taxes to fund, accelerating the economic and social collapse that makes expansion necessary to survive. Conflicts. The NCR fights everyone simultaneously because their expansion threatens everyone's existence, creating a cycle where victory requires resources that require expansion that creates more enemies. The Brotherhood War erupted from technological ideology meeting territorial reality. Initially, they coexisted. The Brotherhood hoarded technology while the NCR handled territory, but NCR citizens settled near Brotherhood bunkers, demanding protection from the techno-religious fanatics. Tensions exploded into open warfare when the NCR tried to claim Helios 1, a solar power plant the Brotherhood occupied. The NCR won through superior numbers, throwing bodies at Brotherhood positions until power armor ran out of ammunition. At Helios 1, they lost 15 soldiers for every knight killed, considering it acceptable because they had more soldiers than the Brotherhood had bullets. Operation Sunburst saw the Brotherhood's response, destroying NCR gold reserves and retreating to hidden bunkers, transforming conventional war into guerrilla nightmare. Now, Brotherhood remnants conduct raids from hidden positions, destroying supply convoys and assassinating officers. They've mastered asymmetric warfare, using technological superiority to inflict maximum damage with minimum exposure. A single Brotherhood squad can destroy an entire NCR company and disappear before reinforcements arrive. The NCR wastes resources hunting bunkers, finding abandoned positions while active cells operate elsewhere. Caesar's Legion represents existential threat, the ideological opposite that wants to erase everything the NCR represents. Edward Sallow, a follower of the apocalypse who read the wrong history books, created the Legion by conquering and assimilating 87 tribes. He built a society on slavery, military discipline, and complete rejection of technology that doesn't kill. Where the NCR promises democracy and delivers oligarchy, the Legion promises order and delivers it through crucifixion. First contact came when NCR expansion met Legion conquest at the Colorado River. The first battle of Hoover Dam in 2277 should have been easy Legion victory. They had numbers, momentum, and fanatical dedication, but Chief Hanlon and the Rangers lured them into Boulder City, then detonated the entire town with Legion forces inside. Tactical genius that started strategic disaster. The Legion retreated but learned, adapting their tactics, while the NCR celebrated victory. By 2281, the Second Battle of Hoover Dam approaches with both sides weakened but the Legion recovering faster. They mass forces across the Colorado while NCR troops desert daily. Frumentari infiltrators operate throughout NCR territory, sabotaging supply lines and assassinating commanders. Legion artillery built by slaves pounds NCR positions while President Kimball visits for photo opportunities. General Oliver prepares defenses he knows won't hold, hoping for miracle that won't come. The Fiends near Vegas present a different problem. Raiders so high on chems they don't feel pain or fear. They attack caravans and patrols with suicidal aggression, using energy weapons stolen from Van Graffs. Motor Runner, Cook, Violet, and Driver Nephi lead separate groups that somehow coordinate attacks despite being constantly high. The NCR throws troops at them, but killing one fiend creates two recruits from addicts seeking revenge or chems. Powder gangers formed from NCR's own justice system. The NCR used convict labor for railroad construction, giving prisoners dynamite for rock clearing. Samuel Cook led a revolt at the correctional facility, and now escaped convicts use stolen explosives against the system that enslaved them. They blow up supply convoys, railroad tracks, and NCR sympathizers. Every attempt to retake the prison fails because they've rigged the entire complex with explosives. The Vipers and Jackals, descendants of the original Vault 15 groups like the Khans, raid settlements the NCR claims to protect. They strike fast, kill everyone, and disappear into terrain they've known for generations. The NCR responds with overwhelming force that arrives too late, finding empty camps and dead civilians. These raiders exist because NCR expansion destroyed their traditional territories, forcing them into violence for survival. Even wildlife causes casualties that rival combat losses. Deathclaws hunt patrols at night, their hides deflecting small arms fire. Cazadores, mutant tarantula hawks from Big MT, swarm soldiers who run out of ammunition. Rad scorpions emerge from underground, their venom killing in minutes. Night Stalkers, another Big MT creation, combine snake and coyote DNA into perfect killing machines. Bloatflies, normally nuisances, cause casualties when soldiers waste ammunition on them instead of real threats. The NCR creates more enemies than they destroy, each conflict spawning 3 more, each victory Pyrrhic and temporary. Fighting everyone made sense once you understand what they were really after. Intelligence? The Office of Science and Industry handles research and development, which translates to desperately trying to understand pre-war technology without manuals, education, or basic scientific method. They've reverse-engineered basic manufacturing through trial and error that mostly produces errors. Service rifle production involves more hand-fitting than mass production, with barrels that might be straight and actions that usually cycle. Ammunition manufacturing creates rounds where 60% fire properly, 30% misfire, and 10% explode in the chamber. Energy weapon research produces prototypes that melt after 3 shots or electrocute operators. They've spent millions trying to reproduce laser rifles, creating expensive clubs that occasionally emit light. Power armor restoration involves welding plates over damaged sections and hoping servo motors don't fail mid-combat. They can't manufacture new suits, only cannibalize destroyed ones into Frankenstein amalgamations. Fusion core technology remains complete mystery. They know core's power armor, but not how or why. Attempts at replication created dirty bombs that irradiated entire workshops. They use Enclave and Brotherhood cores until they deplete, then abandon the armor. Agricultural science focuses on radiation-resistant crops that grow in poison soil. They've created maize that survives radiation, but tastes like ash and provides minimal nutrition. Wheat grows fast, but mutations make it potentially toxic. Vegetables reach enormous size but cause radiation sickness. Brahmin breeding programs attempt to reduce mutations, though 2 heads seem permanently encoded in their DNA. Attempts at creating new livestock produced creatures too horrible for consumption. Medical research happens at facilities where ethics committees don't exist, and probably shouldn't. Stimpack production involves Brahmin blood, mutfruit extracts, and chemicals that might promote healing or might be elaborate placebo. They work 40% of the time, which beats dying. Radaway synthesis successfully eliminates radiation while causing kidney damage the NCR doesn't document. Psychological research on PTSD got abandoned when results showed most soldiers were traumatized beyond current treatment capabilities. Water purification technology exists, but requires materials they can't produce and knowledge they don't possess. They maintain pre-war purification systems through constant patch jobs that fail regularly. New systems get built wrong, creating water that looks clean but carries invisible contamination. Attempts at desalination for coastal settlements produced brine that poisoned surrounding land. The OSI also handles intelligence gathering, though calling it intelligence generously describes their operations. Agents infiltrate settlements to assess loyalty, usually so obviously that locals feed them false information for entertainment. The NCR believes these reports, making decisions based on fiction. Communications monitoring involves listening to radio channels everyone knows are monitored, so real intelligence gets passed through coded Brahmin drives. Counterintelligence means shooting suspected spies without trials or evidence. The Legion's frumentarii operate freely because they understand NCR paranoia and bureaucracy. They file proper paperwork, bribe correct officials, and operate legally while conducting sabotage. Brotherhood technical superiority means NCR communications are definitely compromised. They use pre-war encryption the Brotherhood cracked decades ago. Special operations include assassination attempts that fail spectacularly when targets turn out to be body doubles or when snipers shoot the wrong person. Sabotage missions succeed in blowing up targets, just never the intended ones. A mission to destroy Legion supplies accidentally destroyed an NCR ammunition depot. An attempt to assassinate Caesar killed his favorite slave instead. Information warfare involves propaganda that citizens recognize as lies. Posters claim victory while refugees flee the frontier. Radio broadcasts promise reinforcements that never arrive and report battles that never happened. Newspapers print government statements without fact-checking because facts are classified. Citizens get told they're winning while their children come home in boxes or don't come home at all. It's intelligence gathering by people who can't gather intelligence, fighting information war they've already lost, using technology they don't understand against enemies who do. Culture. The NCR desperately recreates pre-war American culture like cargo cultists, copying forms without understanding functions, building democracy's corpse and wondering why it won't breathe. Education exists in settlements large enough to support schools, teaching reading, writing, and arithmetic to children who will probably die before using algebra. Literacy rates reach 60% in core territories, dropping to 10% on frontiers where survival trumps spelling. History classes teach NCR propaganda disguised as fact. Tandy becomes a goddess figure who never made mistakes. Bitter Springs becomes a legitimate military operation. Expansion becomes a civilizing mission. Higher education remains exclusive to the wealthy who can afford universities in Shady Sands or the Hub. These institutions teach from pre-war textbooks without context, producing graduates who memorize facts about a dead world without understanding the living one. Engineering students learn to build structures that require materials that don't exist. Medical students practice surgery on Brahmin because human corpses are too valuable for fertilizer. The arts survive through government funding that demands propaganda over quality. The NCR funds theaters that perform approved plays about brave soldiers defeating evil raiders, with scripts edited by cultural committees to ensure proper messaging. Musicians play patriotic songs at government events. Their instruments often pre-war relics held together with wire and hope. Visual artists paint presidential portraits and heroic battle scenes, never depicting actual war. The limbless veterans, the orphaned children, the burned settlements. Literature gets published by government presses when paper exists, which isn't often. Novels glorify manifest destiny and civilization triumphing over savagery. Poetry celebrates democracy while ignoring oligarchy. Journalists write what they're told or find other careers. Independent publishers get shut down for sedition when they print truth. Architecture follows pre-war styles without understanding structural engineering, creating buildings that impress briefly before collapsing. Adobe construction dominates because it's simple and materials are available, though structures dissolve in acid rain. Government buildings get built massive to project power, using concrete mixed wrong and steel that rusts. Infrastructure projects like aqueducts start ambitious and end abandoned when funding disappears into official pockets. Religion remains technically free, though practically controlled. The NCR tolerates all faiths that don't challenge government authority or question expansion. Christian denominations operate churches that double as recruitment centers. Tribal religions get suppressed as primitive unless they encourage cooperation with NCR goals. The followers of the apocalypse maintain independence through medical knowledge the NCR desperately needs, though they're watched constantly for seditious activity. New religions emerge around radiation and mutation, quickly banned if they suggest the bombs were deserved or that ghouls are the next evolution. The Church of Adam gets persecuted for worshipping radiation. Habologists exist despite everyone knowing they're insane, protected by wealthy converts who donate to proper campaigns. Sports provide distraction from misery. Brahmin racing draws crowds betting food they can't spare on animals they'll never own. Boxing matches between soldiers let citizens watch their protectors beat each other bloody for entertainment. Caravan, the card game, gets played everywhere with rules that change by region and stakes that range from caps to lives. Social hierarchy puts politicians and military officers at the top, eating fresh food and drinking clean water. Merchants and landowners occupy the middle, comfortable but not secure. Everyone else exists at the bottom, scrambling for survival while told they're citizens of the greatest nation in the wasteland. Brahmin barons live in estates with private security while sharecroppers starve in shacks. Water merchants control entire communities through monopoly while people die of thirst feet from rivers. Ghouls face discrimination despite official equality, with no ghouls signs, common and legal. They're banned from restaurants because they're unsanitary, from hotels because they disturb guests, from schools because they frighten children. Ghoul soldiers serve in segregated units, given suicide missions because radiation immunity makes them expendable. Super mutants get shot on sight unless they prove intelligence first, and even then face constant suspicion. Marriage law recognizes all unions, including same-sex and interspecies, though society doesn't always agree. A human-ghoul marriage might be legal, but social suicide. Divorce requires legal proceedings that favor whoever bribes judges better. Inheritance law favors eldest children, concentrating wealth across generations. Property rights exist on paper, but enforcement depends on political connections. The poor lose land to legal technicalities, while the rich steal openly. Citizens get trials by jury unless military tribunal or emergency powers apply, which happens increasingly often. Juries get selected from voter rolls, meaning property owners judge the propertyless. Prisons operate as slave labor camps where convicts build roads and fortifications until they die. Capital punishment applies to treason, desertion, sedition, and whatever else judges decide. Rehabilitation doesn't exist. Criminals either die in prison or get released to commit more crimes from desperation. It's American culture as shambling zombie, moving forward on momentum alone, rotting from within while wearing democracy's dead skin. But here's what the history books won't tell you. The NCR's collapse wasn't political or military. It was technological. And it started with a lie they told themselves about what they understood: technology. The NCR possesses just enough technology to think they're advanced while lacking understanding to maintain what they have, creating slow-motion collapse as irreplaceable equipment fails forever. Manufacturing happens at gun runners' facilities and government workshops that produce quantity over quality. They make service rifles through process that's more artisanal than industrial. Each weapon hand-fitted because standardization requires precision they can't achieve. Ammunition production involves chemistry they don't fully understand, creating rounds with unpredictable powder loads. Some bullets travel too fast and tumble, others too slow and bounce off armor. Quality control means test firing one round per batch and hoping the rest match. Power generation relies entirely on pre-war infrastructure they can't replace. Hoover Dam provides electricity they waste through inefficient transmission across degrading lines. Engineers who understand the dam systems die without training replacements because the knowledge requires education they can't provide. Solar panels exist at Helios 1, but nobody understands the control systems. Wind power gets discussed in committees that don't know how generators work. Most settlements rely on diesel generators running on biofuel that corrodes engines, requiring constant replacement of parts that can't be manufactured. Transportation infrastructure crumbles faster than repairs can patch. Roads that survived nuclear war don't survive NCR truck convoys carrying loads beyond design limits. Bridges collapse regularly because nobody understands load distribution. The Long 15 requires constant maintenance that never happens, creating pothole fields that destroy vehicles. Railroads exist as rusted tracks with gaps where raiders steal iron. The NCR runs 3 trains that break down more than they run, pulled by engines held together with scavenged parts and prayer. Communication technology peaks at ham radios with limited range and no encryption. Military communications get intercepted by anyone with receiver and patience. The Legion, Brotherhood, and Raiders all listen to NCR channels, knowing patrol routes and supply shipments. Telegraph lines exist between major settlements but get cut so often that messages arrive faster by courier. Courier services handle sensitive information, assuming couriers don't get killed, bought, or lost. Medical technology can't match ambitions or needs. Hospitals exist in major cities, sterile in appearance, but not practice. Surgery happens without proper anesthesia because MedX gets stolen for recreational use. Surgeons operate with instruments sterilized in alcohol that might be diluted. X-ray machines exist in 2 locations, neither functional, used as expensive paperweights. Blood transfusions work if blood types match, which they test by seeing if patients die. Agricultural technology involves irrigation systems that leak more water than they deliver. Pipes made from scavenged materials don't match, creating pressure losses and contamination. Fertilizer production creates chemicals that might help plants or might poison soil permanently. They won't know for years. Pesticides kill pests along with beneficial insects, birds, and occasionally farmers who forget which fields were sprayed. Harvesting equipment breaks down constantly, forcing manual labor that can't match population growth. Weapons technology stagnates at conventional firearms they can barely maintain. Energy weapon research produces prototypes that kill operators through radiation leaks or power surges. Explosives manufacturing creates bombs with unpredictable yields. Grenades that might stun or might level buildings. Artillery exists, but shells can't be replaced, so they're saved for emergencies that never seem emergency enough. Chemical weapons are banned, but probably manufactured secretly, though they can't control them enough to use safely. It's technological regression disguised as progress, each year losing more knowledge, each generation understanding less, using remnants of dead civilization like sacred relics whose purposes are forgotten. You think their technology was broken? Wait until you see what they did to their own people. The NCR's greatest crime wasn't against their enemies, society. The NCR's real weakness wasn't their enemies. It was what they became while fighting them. And once you see how their society actually functioned, their collapse starts making perfect sense. Here's what the propaganda posters never showed. By 2281, the NCR had developed a class system that would make pre-war America jealous. Brahmin barons like Alice McLafferty and Heck Gunderson didn't just get rich from ranching. They bought senators, wrote agricultural policy, and turned democracy into a bidding war where the highest donation won. These weren't cartoon villains. They were business people who discovered that buying politicians cost less than competing fairly. Gunderson's influence over President Kimball was so obvious that even NCR citizens joked about it. Water rights, grazing permits, trade routes, everything got decided by whoever had the deepest pockets. Meanwhile, sharecroppers worked land they'd never own, handing over 70% of their harvest to landlords who'd never touched a plow. Factory workers in the hub earned wages that barely covered rent in tenements where radiation leaked through walls. The middle class clung to jobs that could disappear with one economic downturn or political shift. But here's what made it sustainable. They convinced people it was opportunity. The NCR taught children that anyone could succeed through hard work while rigging the system to ensure most couldn't. Students graduated believing their struggles were personal failures, not structural problems. Teachers spread this message knowing it was false because questioning it meant unemployment. The corruption went deeper than most realized. Brahmin barons didn't just influence policy, they wrote it. Trade regulations that happened to favor their businesses, environmental laws with loopholes for their operations, military contracts that somehow always went to their subsidiaries. Why didn't people revolt? Because the NCR had perfected something more effective than oppression: exhaustion. Work 16 hours to afford 8 hours of living. Spend your free time recovering enough to work again.
Coming to bed, honey?
Yes, dear.
When people are too tired to think, they don't question why their children go hungry while granaries overflow with exports to Vegas. Drug addiction ravaged frontier communities, but not from government conspiracy, from despair. Jet offered escape from lives with no hope of improvement. Med-X numbed pain that couldn't be treated. Alcohol made hunger easier to ignore. The NCR didn't create this addiction. They just ignored it, because treating it would mean admitting their system was broken. The racial situation revealed something uglier about human nature. The NCR Constitution guaranteed equal rights, and they genuinely believed this made them progressive. But legal equality meant nothing when banks wouldn't loan to ghouls, employers wouldn't hire them, and landlords wouldn't rent to them. This wasn't systematic genocide. It was something more insidious. Systematic exclusion that happened without anyone taking responsibility. Nobody wrote "no ghouls" policies, but somehow ghouls couldn't get mortgages. Nobody banned mutant voting, but polling places in mutant areas kept closing for maintenance. Marcus didn't flee because his home was burned. He left because he could read the writing on the wall. NCR citizens weren't evil, but they were scared. And scared people do terrible things while convincing themselves they're being reasonable. Women faced similar invisible barriers. They could serve in combat roles, but somehow the best assignments went to men. They could run for office, but campaign funding came from networks that didn't include them. Legal equality existed while practical inequality persisted. The NCR's tragedy wasn't that they were monsters, it's that they were human. They built a system where good people could participate in oppression while genuinely believing they were fighting for justice. Democracy became oligarchy not through revolution, but through 1,000 small compromises that nobody wanted to admit were compromises. Veterans returned from war to find their farms seized for unpaid taxes. Citizens discovered their water rights had been sold to corporations while they were serving. The people who sacrificed for the Republic found the Republic had sacrificed them for profit. By 2281, NCR society was consuming itself. Every victory abroad meant defeat at home. Every expansion enriched the connected while impoverishing everyone else. The system that started as democracy's hope had become its cautionary tale. The nuke that hit Shady Sands wasn't justice. It was Vault-Tech's evil plan succeeding. But the fact that many wastelanders didn't mourn the NCR's destruction tells you everything about what they'd become. The NCR proved that good intentions aren't enough, that legal equality isn't real equality, that democracy can become oligarchy through entirely democratic processes. Their society's collapse wasn't inevitable because they were evil. It was inevitable because they were human, and humans have a talent for destroying what they claim to protect. But if you think their social problems were bad, wait until you see what they did to the environment, because that's where their real crime against the future becomes clear. Environment. NCR expansion devastates ecosystems already damaged by nuclear war, creating ecological collapse that ensures civilization's failure regardless of military or political outcomes. Water consumption exceeds natural replenishment by 300%, with aquifers that took millennia to fill drained in decades. Lake Mead drops 3 feet yearly as the NCR diverts flow for agriculture that feeds cattle, not people. Rivers that survived nuclear war don't survive NCR irrigation. Reduced to toxic trickles carrying agricultural agricultural runoff. The Colorado River, once mighty, becomes a series of stagnant pools between dams that generate less power each year. Wells run dry in sequence from shallow to deep, forcing settlements to dig deeper until they hit bedrock or radiation. Water tables contaminated by industrial runoff create permanent dead zones where nothing grows and nothing can live. Attempts at purification fail because contamination exceeds any technology's capability. Communities abandon ancestral homes because water that sustained them for generations disappears in years. Deforestation accelerates as population grows and needs multiply. Forests that survive nuclear fire don't survive NCR axes, cleared for farmland that fails within seasons. Without root systems, soil erodes with every rain, creating mudslides that bury settlements. Flooding increases in intensity and frequency, with water that once absorbed now rushing destructively. Desertification advances 50 miles per decade, consuming productive land that becomes permanent wasteland. Mining operations poison land for centuries, with heavy metals leaching into groundwater that spreads contamination far beyond extraction sites. Tailings piles leak toxic runoff that kills everything downstream, creating dead rivers that flow poison instead of water. Abandoned mines fill with radioactive water that seeps into aquifers, contaminating water supplies hundreds of miles away. Strip mining destroys entire mountains for minerals that fund wars, leaving moonscapes where ecosystems once thrived. Agricultural practices guarantee soil death through ignorance disguised as progress. Monocropping depletes nutrients without rotation, requiring increasing fertilizer that further poisons land. Pesticides create resistant pests, while killing beneficial insects that pollinated crops. Overgrazing by Brahmin herds turns grasslands into hardpack where nothing grows. Irrigation without drainage creates salt buildup that makes soil sterile within decades. Industrial pollution rivals pre-war levels without any environmental protection or understanding of consequences. Factories dump waste wherever convenient, rivers, lakes, or just outside town limits. Chemical spills happen weekly without cleanup, creating toxic zones that expand with rain. Air pollution from coal burning creates acid rain that dissolves adobe buildings and burns skin. Radioactive waste gets stored improperly when stored at all, usually just dumped in remote locations that aren't remote enough. Urban sprawl consumes productive farmland for settlements that can't sustain themselves. Cities expand without planning or infrastructure, creating slums that breed disease. Sewage systems, where they exist, dump raw waste into water supplies. Garbage accumulates faster than disposal, creating mountains of refuse that spontaneously combust in summer heat. Rats and radroaches thrive in urban decay, spreading diseases that medicine can't cure. Wildlife faces extinction from every direction. Bighorners get overhunted until breeding populations collapse. Gecko populations crash from commercial harvesting for their hides. Predators get eliminated to protect livestock, disrupting food chains that maintained balance. Invasive species introduced accidentally or deliberately destroy native ecosystems. Radiation creates new mutations that outcompete existing species, fundamentally altering evolution. Climate change accelerates from industrial activity without any regulation or understanding. Temperatures rise in already hot regions, making them uninhabitable. Rainfall patterns shift, creating permanent drought in some regions and flooding in others. Storms increase in intensity, with rad storms that spread contamination hundreds of miles. Desertification advances faster than any terraforming attempt, consuming the NCR from within. But the nuclear bomb that hit Shady Sands wasn't random. Someone wanted the NCR dead, and you'll never guess who. Collapse. By 2281, the NCR teeters on complete collapse, every victory accelerating their downfall through imperial overreach that consumes more than it conquers. Military desertion reaches crisis levels that can't be hidden despite propaganda. Entire units disappear into the wasteland, soldiers walking away from posts to become raiders who eat regularly. Camp Forlorn Hope sees squads desert nightly, leaving positions unmanned. Officers report strength they don't have, collecting pay for ghost soldiers while real troops flee. Veterans return home to find their farms seized for unpaid taxes during their service, creating revolutionaries from heroes who know how to fight. Recruitment relies entirely on conscription that drives young people to flee NCR territory entirely. Draft dodgers hide in mountains or pay bribes they can't afford. Those caught get sent to front lines as punishment, ensuring they'll desert or die. Volunteer rates hit zero in frontier communities that see what military service actually means. Propaganda posters promising glory can't hide returning veterans missing limbs and minds. Economic collapse accelerates through war spending that exceeds the total economy. The government prints money to pay soldiers, causing inflation that makes wheelbarrows of cash buy loaves of bread. War bonds sell to patriotic citizens at gunpoint, everyone knowing they'll never see repayment. Banks fail weekly as depositors demand withdrawals in caps, not NCR dollars. Currency speculation enriches insiders who know when the government will print more worthless paper. Black markets become the only functional economy as official systems fail. Caps, Legion coins, and barter replace NCR dollars that merchants won't accept. Smuggling becomes more profitable than legal trade, with tariffs exceeding cargo value. Price controls create shortages of everything, with goods available only through illegal channels. Even government officials use black markets, paying bribes with resources they're supposed to distribute. Political instability grows as citizens lose faith in democracy that never represented them. President Kimball's approval ratings, if measured honestly, wouldn't exceed single digits. Congress passes laws nobody follows, their authority existing only where soldiers enforce it. Protests get suppressed by military that's supposed to protect democratic rights. Elections get postponed for emergencies that never end. Secessionist movements gain momentum in every territory. The hub merchants openly discuss independence to avoid taxes funding doomed wars. Vault City maintains functional independence through technology blackmail. Redding's miners strike constantly, shutting down gold production that funds the government. Even core territories see independence movements. Tired of sending children to die for Brahmin Baron profits, the Legion threatens from the east with forces growing while the NCR weakens daily. Caesar masses troops across the Colorado, their discipline contrasting NCR chaos. Frumentary infiltrators operate throughout NCR territory, gathering intelligence and spreading propaganda about Legion stability. The Second Battle of Hoover Dam approaches with NCR forces demoralized, undersupplied, and ready to flee. Chief Hanlon, the hero of the first battle, falsifies intelligence reports to encourage retreat from unwinnable positions. He knows the NCR can't win, hopes they'll withdraw before complete destruction. Rangers die in operations that accomplish nothing except political theater. First Recon takes impossible shots trying to delay inevitable defeat. Internal conflicts tear the nation apart faster than external enemies. States refuse to send taxes to federal government that can't protect them. Regional commanders ignore orders from distant bureaucrats. Military units fight each other over resources, with supply convoys needing protection from their own forces. Citizens attack tax collectors, burn government buildings, lynch officials. Resource depletion means even victory would be meaningless. Water sources dry up from overuse, creating conflicts over remaining supplies that turn violent. Arable land turns to desert from industrial agriculture, unable to feed existing population. Mines exhaust their deposits, leaving poisoned wastelands that produce nothing. Energy infrastructure fails as equipment breaks without replacement. Food shortages trigger riots in core territories that were supposed to be stable. Brahmin herds die from diseases that spread through concentrated populations. Crops fail from soil depletion that fertilizer can't fix. Distribution systems collapse as transport breaks down and roads become impassable. Starvation spreads from frontiers to capitals, with even the wealthy struggling to find food. Then, in 2283, Shady Sands gets nuked. Vault-Tech's Hank McLean, according to the TV series, detonates a nuclear device that vaporizes the NCR capital. Millions die instantly. Government leadership evaporates. Military command structure collapses. Economic systems that barely functioned cease entirely. Communication networks fail as their center disappears. The explosion fragments the NCR into competing remnants. Without central authority, states declare independence or get conquered by neighbors. Military units become warlord armies, controlling territory through force. The Brotherhood of Steel steamrolls through weakened territories, claiming technology and resources. By 2296, the NCR exists only in memory, their democracy dead in atomic fire. The exact fate they tried to prevent by rebuilding civilization. Legacy. The NCR shaped post-war America more profoundly than any other faction, their failure teaching harder lessons than their success ever could. In Fallout 2, they represented hope incarnate, civilization triumphing over chaos through democracy and law. Players helped them grow, believing their expansion meant progress for the wasteland. Every quest supporting them felt like building something better. The game portrayed them as flawed but improving, dealing with corruption while constructing the future. Choosing NCR felt like choosing humanity's redemption. New Vegas revealed the price of that choice in blood and tyranny. The democracy became oligarchy. The liberation became imperialism. The protection became exploitation. Players faced impossible choices at Hoover Dam between flawed democracy, fascist order, autocratic independence, or anarchic freedom. The NCR path offered stability through oppression, peace through exhaustion, victory that ensured eventual defeat. Every option required moral compromise, forcing players to decide which evil they could live with. The TV series confirmed this trajectory wasn't really an accident, but inevitable at the same time. Shady Sands' nuclear destruction perfectly captured franchise themes. War never changes, because humans never change. The NCR's annihilation wasn't betrayal of lore, but confirmation that rebuilding old systems produces old results. Democracy without addressing what destroys democracy just delays the same collapse. Every major faction defines itself through NCR relationship. The Legion exists as their opposite, choosing slavery over false freedom, order over corrupt democracy. Caesar studied NCR's every weakness, building society that avoids their failures through brutality. The Brotherhood sees them as thieves, who stole technology without understanding, using knowledge without wisdom. Mr. House treats them as useful tools, manipulating their greed while maintaining independence through superior planning. Characters throughout the games carry NCR trauma. Marcus founded Jacobstown after fleeing their persecution of super mutants. Cassidy's caravan suffered under their taxes and regulations that favored monopolies. Boone carries guilt from Bitter Springs, representing every soldier who followed orders into atrocity. Arcade Gannon hides Enclave heritage that NCR would prosecute regardless of his actions. Veronica watches her Brotherhood fight hopeless war against them. Every companion story involves NCR's impact. The two-headed bear symbol became gaming's most recognizable faction icon after Vault Boy. It perfectly captures their nature. Mutation pretending to be restoration. Diseased organism thinking itself healthy. Fan art depicts it everywhere, on flags, tattoos, armor, and mods. The Ranger armor silhouette defines Wasteland Authority even in death. Patrolling the Mojave memes transcend gaming into broader culture.
Patrolling the Mojave almost makes you wish for a nuclear winter.
Patrolling the Mojave almost makes you wish for a nuclear winter.
Patrolling the Mojave almost makes you wish for a nuclear winter.
Patrolling the Mojave almost makes you wish for a nuclear winter.
Patrolling the Mojave almost makes you wish for a nuclear winter.
Modding communities spend thousands of hours expanding NCR content. New Vegas mods restore cut content showing their political intrigue, military operations, and economic complexity. Fallout 4 mods add NCR expeditions to the Commonwealth, exploring what survivors might build. Total conversion mods create alternate histories. What if Tandy died early? What if the Brotherhood won? What if the Legion never existed? The faction inspires more creativity than any except Vault-Tec. Philosophical discussions about the NCR fill forums with democracy versus autocracy debates that mirror real-world politics. Some argue they're necessary evil preventing worse outcomes. Better corrupt democracy than honest fascism. Others claim they're just another oppressor with better propaganda, that their democracy is lie that makes their tyranny worse. Parallels to real America generate political arguments that reveal how players see their own society. Developer commentary reveals NCR as deliberate critique of American exceptionalism and democratic imperialism. Josh Sawyer designed them as America without learning from its mistakes, showing how democracy becomes empire. Chris Avallone wanted them destroyed to reset the wasteland, preventing stagnation through catastrophe. Different writers had conflicting visions, creating complexity through disagreement that mirrors real political discourse. The NCR matters because it forces players to confront uncomfortable questions about systems they live under. Can democracy exist without becoming oligarchy? Does expansion always become imperialism? Is civilization worth its cost in freedom? No other faction makes these questions so personal and immediate. Analysis. The NCR stands as Fallout's greatest faction achievement, not because they're heroes or villains, but because they're human in all its contradiction. They show democracy's beauty and ugliness simultaneously, inseparable aspects of the same system. Citizens vote while corporations purchase elections. Laws protect rights while enabling systematic oppression. Military defends freedom through destroying it elsewhere. Education exists while propaganda dominates curriculum. Technology advances while understanding regresses. Culture thrives while inequality festers. Hope persists while corruption spreads through every institution. The faction forces players to confront uncomfortable truths about systems we inhabit. Democracy doesn't prevent imperialism, it legitimizes it through voting. Capitalism doesn't ensure prosperity, it concentrates it through market mechanics. Military doesn't guarantee security, it requires insecurity to justify existence. Law doesn't create justice, it codifies existing power structures. Progress doesn't mean improvement, just change that might be worse. Yet abandoning these systems means accepting alternatives that are arguably worse. The Legion offers order through slavery, stability through crucifixion. The Brotherhood provides security through techno-fascism, safety through stagnation. House promises prosperity through autocracy, progress through dictatorship. Independence means chaos, freedom that includes freedom to oppress. The NCR may be failing democracy, but it remains democracy where citizens have theoretical power even if practice disappoints. This complexity makes them narratively perfect, providing no easy answers or comfortable choices. Players can't simply choose good versus evil, right versus wrong. Every decision requires moral calculus about lesser evils and greater goods that never balance cleanly. Supporting them means accepting imperialism for stability, oppression for order. Opposing them means accepting chaos for principle, suffering for freedom. No choice satisfies moral absolutism. Through the NCR, Fallout achieves what science fiction does best, examining present through future metaphor. Post-apocalyptic democracy isn't prediction, but reflection of current systems. Their failures aren't prophecy, but warning about trajectories we're following. Their struggles aren't entertainment, but education about prices we're paying. The two-headed bear watches over wasteland democracy's grave, reminder that rebuilding requires more than recreating. Systems that caused apocalypse won't prevent another through repetition. Democracy without equality becomes oligarchy inevitably. Freedom without responsibility becomes chaos immediately. Law without justice becomes oppression automatically. Progress without wisdom becomes destruction eventually. Players remember the NCR because they're us, trying to rebuild after destruction we caused. Their failures are our failures magnified by radiation. Their hopes are our hopes twisted by desperation. Their struggles are our struggles with mutation metaphors. We see ourselves in their mirror, distorted but recognizable. The faction succeeded by failing, showing price of success and cost of failure simultaneously. They built something from nothing, then destroyed it through building. They proved democracy possible after apocalypse, then proved it insufficient for preventing another. They demonstrated that survival isn't enough if you survive as what destroyed you. That's their legacy. Magnificent failure teaching more than perfect success ever could. Democracy showing democracy's limits through exceeding them. Civilization revealing civilization's price through paying it. Progress demonstrating progress's direction through following it. Hope carrying hope's burden through bearing it until it breaks. The NCR is mirror reflecting what we are and warning what we might become, showing that war never changes because neither does human nature. Neither does democracy's struggle between idealism and reality, between promise and delivery, between the republic we imagine and the empire we inevitably build. Their story resonates because it's our story told through nuclear metaphor. Their collapse previews our potential future. Their lessons are ones we're refusing to learn. Their fate awaits civilizations that rebuild without reforming, that progress without improving, that advance without advancing. In the end, the NCR proves that the wasteland's greatest threat isn't radiation, raiders, or monsters. It's human nature organized into systems that amplify our worst impulses while promising to control them. It's democracy that becomes imperialism, capitalism that becomes feudalism, law that becomes tyranny, all through legitimate democratic processes. The mushroom cloud over Shady Sands in 2283 merely punctuates a sentence that was already written, that war never changes, and neither do we. If you enjoyed this complete NCR breakdown and want to see every single vault experiment explained in detail, click the video on screen.